Good evening, everyone. We are going to go ahead and get started. Our board president is on her way. She should be here shortly, but we do have a quorum. And so at this time, we'd like to call the meeting to order. And we would like to also ask Chief Polino if you can lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Now we would like to have the adoption of the agenda. All in favor? Thank you, Dr. Flores. All right, motion carried. At this time, okay, I think we're going to now adjourn. We're going to adjourn for closed session.
Madam President, Vice President, we do have a public comment for
okay.
closed session, and so
All right.
the board does welcome Ms. Ashley Beta-Salcala, our SBTA President, to comment on our closed session topic. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Vice President Rogers, Superintendent, Cabinet members, and esteemed board members. I am Ashley Beta-Salcala, President of the San Bernardino Teachers Association. And I just want to give you a quick update since I know negotiations will be discussed during closed session. We have met with the district 2 more times since your meeting last week, and we are making some progress towards a mutually acceptable agreement. This week we're also scheduled to meet tomorrow and again on Friday, and we look forward to having this comprehensive TA ready for ratification by May 14th. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Are there any other?
There are no other comments for closed
Okay.
session.
If there are no other comments, we will adjourn to closed session.
All right, good evening, everyone. We are back from closed session. Okay, there was no action taken. Excuse me. Let's go ahead and go to 4.0 public comments. Do we have any?
Yes,
Public
Madam
comments.
President, just one moment.
Okay.
Board welcomes Ms. Dolores Delgado on Gardner Holt Education 2019 Summer Academy request for funding. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening. Good evening, President Medina, board members, Superintendent Marsden, and members of the cabinet. My name is Dolores Delgado. I am the Curriculum and Instruction Specialist for Gardner Holt Education Through Imagination. As a former San Bernardino City Unified School District educator, I am honored to be speaking with you tonight. I would like to take this opportunity to extend our appreciation again for allowing us to continue to serve the students and schools that you represent. As a former San Bernardino City Unified student and teacher, the future of our San Bernardino City Unified students continues to be a priority in my life's work. At Gardner Holt, through imagination, our mission is to provide students with exceptional learning opportunities focused on all elements of STEAM education, career awareness, and preparedness, with the goal of sparking students' imagination for a future brighter than the one they currently envision, which to us is the definition of hope. I've come tonight to share an opportunity for further collaboration between San Bernardino City Unified and Gardner Holt Education Through Imagination in the form of a summer learning academy for the students you represent. Building upon the recent success from our summer learning academy of Arroyo Valley High School students during their spring break at Gardner Holt Productions, we are ready to expand the breadth of our programming to reach a group of students in need of all opportunities and resources we are able to provide. The development of the 2019 Gardner Holt Summer Academy is the result of our education team's discussions following the Arroyo Valley High School Spring Academy, along with my teaching experiences at San Bernardino City Unified as a bilingual and mainstream educator, where I received great support, training, and multiple opportunities to implement programs focused on the diverse needs of our students, including targeted strategies to make content accessible to our EL students. As the research continues to show, English learners experience an achievement gap in both academic areas as well as college and career preparedness when compared to their English-only peers. In an effort to eliminate this gap, we have created what we believe is an exceptional opportunity to support English learners' continued development in reading, writing, listening, and speaking over the summer. With summer in mind, all these factors inspired us to expand our programming to include an instructional and engaging program that helps to mitigate what is often deemed as the summer slide for our EL students, and to help build a stronger bridge between this year's learning and next. I am excited to present you with our proposal tonight that describes our summer academy, and I welcome any questions you might have. Our summer academy provides programming and activities guided by the integration of Common Core state standards, ELD standards, combined with STEAM learning and authentic practice in 21st century skills. Summer academy students will spend 3 weeks of their summer engaging with their peers as they learn through robotics, automation, and visual and performing arts to create an engaging animatronics presentation. The Summer Academy will culminate in a showcase for families, staff, and community at the end of the 3 weeks. I bring with me tonight our proposal for our 2019 Summer Academy. Along with this proposal is our request to the board to provide support through funding to the schools who elect to participate in this programming. As the school year winds down, we understand time is very limited, so we are therefore prepared to work directly with school site leadership and staff for the identification and enrollment to this program. Thank you again for your time and consideration, and I look forward to hearing from you and continuing our work with San Bernardino City Unified.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Delgado. Board welcomes now.
Yes, go ahead, Dr. Flores.
Ms. Delgado, you are going to give us your proposal.
Yes.
And I know that I went to that presentation at Garner Holt, and our students in 4 days did incredible work. And when we talk about applied learning, our kids programmed the animatronics. They didn't know that they were using calculus, Mr. Gallo. They were using calculus, and they didn't know that they were using calculus. And it was just amazing. And so I really appreciate what you're saying. And you're going to give us a proposal, but what expertise and what materials will you also contribute to the 3 weeks?
So, like I mentioned in my comments right now, I was an educator here at San Bernardino City Unified. During that time, I worked both as a mainstream teacher and as a bilingual teacher. During that time, I also was an English language facilitator where I received training in EL instructional strategies. I also worked at Bingwang Elementary, where I was part of the team that developed the STEAM lab and the eye care lab. And
so Garner Holt,
and
you'll
then Garner
provide
Holt,
that. So
yes.
you mentioned robotics, you mentioned
and Garner
animatronic.
Holt Productions is able to provide the expertise, the people that are working in the industry, people that are programming, the artists, sculptors, costumers, the people that are actually
So the whole array of people.
Engineers, yes.
So Dr. Marsden, so who does she submit the proposal to?
I believe you've already submitted it. Is that correct?
I have it with me.
Fantastic. Okay, yes, if you haven't done so, you're certainly welcome to leave it with Ms. Karen Cunningham, the board secretary.
I have
We'll
a
take
question. And so this proposed information that you're giving us, this is different from what you're currently doing in the district? This is to just do it during the summertime or for specific students? Who?
This is what we are proposing is a 3-week summer academy. And it is, our target audience is, as we said, our EL students, but we recognize that all students can benefit from an EL instruction that is strategic. We welcome all students to participate in our
What
program.
made you decide to be an EL? Just what is it based on what you're currently doing now?
So it was
Really
based
not.
on our experience with the Arroyo Valley High School. And in our discussions and our debriefing, we talked about what the strengths of our program were, and in conjunction with summer coming up and deciding which students would benefit most greatly from the services that we provide, we decided to target that summer slide. And so we decided to focus on our EL students.
How will the students get over to Garner Holt?
So what we are proposing, in our proposal, we propose to work at a school site. So depending on the grade range, whether it be 3 through 5, 6 through 8, or 9 through 12, we would work with that school site, and we would actually go to their site and provide the programming there.
How many students are you proposing to? work with?
100, up to 100 students.
And they're going to be, what is the recruitment going to look like? How will you get them?
We would work with the site leadership, and based on their EL index or whoever they decided would benefit the most from that program, we would work with them, talk to the parents, and make sure that they would be able to commit to
But
those
you said
3
that
weeks.
it'll be open for all students, or you would?
We would
like
leave
it
that,
to be?
yeah, so just because of the research is why we based on the EL students. But we are open, our education team is very well versed to work with diversity of students. We welcome all students. It has been our consistent experience that our programs reach all the students from different learning backgrounds.
Thank you.
All right, and then one last clarifying question from myself is that, well, since you're working with EL students, I'm imagining maybe Spanish-speaking students, will this be done in Spanish?
Now, that is my dream, to move on to a dual immersion program. But for this summer, it would be targeted towards English language proficiency. And as we are doing this, part of our proposal is to gather data. We continue to gather that data to make sure that we are serving the students as best as we can. And that would be my next proposal I hope to come to you with, is our dual immersion or multilingual initiative.
And the reason why I was asking is that then it's just looking at the limitations of why not to include additional students, African-American students and so forth. If it's done in English, then, we can definitely look at that. So
Yeah,
thank you
there's
so much.
definitely no limitations.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you again, Ms. Delgado. Board welcomes back Ms. Ashley Betis Alcala, SBTA. Oh, okay. Okay, this is 5.1, so sorry. Local Control Accountability Plan Budget Update? No, so that's why I'm calling you on that topic. You want to speak? You don't want? Oh, after the presentation. I apologize. Okay, gotcha. Great, okay. Thank you. And if anybody else also wants to speak after the presentation, just note that on your public comment card, so we'll know that information. We'll need Karen to receive those cards quickly, please. Next comment, board welcomes Mr. Trayvon Martin. Good evening, Mr. Martin, and welcome back.
Good evening, board. My name is Trayvon Martin. I'm the Public Affairs and Community Engagement Representative for California School Boards Association. Here tonight to let you guys know that we are setting up legislative office visits around the May revise. So as soon as the May revise comes out, what I'm going to do is work with the legislative offices to schedule a time for our board members to come and advocate for specific items in the May revise budget. So there'll be some overall specific asks that we, as a statewide association, would ask our members to discuss during those visits, but also allowing our members to take their local experiences and district needs and infuse that in the conversation when they're meeting with their legislators. We expect that the May revise is going to be a little bit different from the governor's proposed budget. There's some issues in there with funding for preschool and facilities and things of that nature. And so we want to make sure that our members are utilizing the dollars well. And we want to make sure the state is giving us the most amount of money for K-12 education because we know we need it. On another note, I attended your last 2 LCAP meetings and I was very impressed. The first one I attended with, I think, was Mr. Doug Reeves was the speaker, and it was really phenomenal. And then I attended the other one last week or the week before last as well, and that was really phenomenal to see the parents engaged and the district really listening and taking the needs of the students serious. So again, I will send that information to Ms. Cunningham and Ms. Cross to sign up for the legislative office visits after the May revise comes out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. The board welcomes Ms. Ayala Lopez. Good evening and welcome.
Hello, it's Ayla.
Ayla, sorry,
No,
I
you're
should
fine.
be able to read that. Thank you, Ms.
You're
Lopez.
fine.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you too. Good evening. My name is Ayla Lopez, and I'm a youth organizer with ICUC. ICUC is made of working class parents and students rooted in 63 congregations and 17 schools across San Bernardino and Riverside counties, representing over 60,000 families. This past Wednesday, April 24th, we had an action where parents and students gave a report and recommendations on 2 issues: combination classes and mental health resources. Around 250 parents and students came out in support. In attendance, we had board members Dr. Flores, Tillman, and Wyatt. When it comes to mental health, we shared our survey of 1,050 high school students from across the district. We learned that 51% of students do not know where to find mental health resources on their campuses, and 71% of students believe that they need more mental health resources on the campus. Through conversations with students, parents, and the Department of Student Wellness and Support Services, one of the recommendations we have is to expand funding for the HEART team so that the team can grow from 3 therapists to 6 therapists in order for more students to receive the resources they provide. This must be done with general funds to guarantee long-term financing. So this means allocating an extra $300,000 to the budget of the Department of Student Wellness and Support Services. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a clarifying question. So you mentioned the 3 to 6 therapists.
Yes.
Is this at all levels, or are you looking at which levels?
They oversee. So this is a team of therapists that oversees all levels. So it's
Okay.
so it's for the whole district.
Oh, okay, that's what you meant. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Madam President, I like.
Yes, go ahead.
So I remember that you said you wanted to increase in the HEART team.
Yeah, that's
right?
the HEART team.
The HEART team. So increase
Okay.
for the whole district, right?
Yeah.
3 to 6.
Yes.
3 to
Okay.
6. Okay.
All right, thank
So, and right now we currently have how many, Doctor?
Oh, well, right now is 3.
We
would
only
like
have
to
3.
increase it to 6.
So you would add 3, so it would go to 6.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying? Okay. Right.
Okay, great,
We're
thank
just
you.
clarifying that. Okay.
Thank you.
Buenas tardes, miembros de la mesa directiva del Distrito Escolar de San Bernardino. El trabajo que hemos realizado en los últimos 3 años, nos hemos dado cuenta que hay oportunidades.
Can you hold on a second? Can we get an interpreter?
She's
Oh,
right there.
I think she's going to read her comments.
She's really good
in
at interpreting,
Spanish,
so she'll
and
be
then
able
you're
to
going to
interpret.
read them in English. Is that the plan?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, but she's really good. So,
I can do sentence by sentence if you want to, whatever. But you have it here in front of you.
as long as what she said already is on the paper, I'm good.
Great. Thank you. Go ahead. Proceed, please.
Buenas tardes, miembros de la mesa directiva del Distrito Escolar de San Bernardino. El trabajo que hemos realizado en los últimos 3 años, nos hemos dado cuenta que hay oportunidades de mejorar el apoyo a maestros y así mejorar la calidad de educación que reciben nuestros hijos. También compartimos el cambio en una escuela donde se le dio apoyo a los maestros en las clases combinaciones, en la forma de tener un maestro interino. Estimados miembros de la mesa directiva, nos gustaría pedirles que asignen $25,000 por clase con el compromiso de cada escuela de utilizar estos fondos para tener el maestro interino en estas clases. Podemos contar con su apoyo de incluir el presupuesto del 2019-2020 y estos fondos de apoyo a maestros y estudiantes en clases combo y para 3 terapistas al equipo HEART.
Good afternoon, members of the board. We would like to share with you some of the stories we have heard about combo classes at various schools. We also shared the change in a school where the teachers were given additional support.
in combination classes in the manner of having an interim teacher. Dear board members, we would like to ask you to add $25,000 per class combo with the commitment of each school to use these funds to have an interim teacher in those combo classes. Can we count on your commitment to include in the 2019-2020 budget these additional funds to support teachers and students in these combo classes, and to add 3 therapists to the HEART team?
Muchas gracias. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question just for clarification?
Yes, go ahead, Danny. Mr. Tillman?
Did you said intern teacher or interim?
Interim.
What's the interim teacher?
El maestro interino es el que le ayuda al profesor que está en la clase.
An interim teacher is one who helps the teacher in that combo class.
So you talking about instructional aid?
A
Yes.
college intern. No, isn't it a college intern? Can I clarify?
Yes.
Because what they said it was before you came, Danny. What they said was that at Lankersheim, they had an combo class, 4 or 5. Tuvieron un combo en Lankersheim. 5 o 6 o 4 o 6.
Sí, y esto ayudó mucho a la maestra.
Ajá. ¿Cuál fue el grado? ¿4, 5 o 5 o 6?
5 o 6.
And the 5th, 6th combination, and that intern, it was an intern or, do we have intern teachers? Yes, helped a lot. And so college intern. So they were expressing a desire, if we're going to continue to do combos, they realize that we have to do combos. It would be helpful for the district to consider putting in intern teachers to help teachers because their kids didn't learn. They had experiences where they didn't learn.
In college, interns work the whole day?
I don't know what the circumstance was.
I'm asking the district staff. Do college interns work the whole day?
Yeah, Dr. Wiseman can answer that. His department oversees all hundreds of interns that we have within the district.
Yeah, so we have college interns across the district and schools, departments, and so forth. They're able to work up to 20 hours a week, and the district typically works with their schedule at school.
20 hours a week. And do we pay them?
That is correct.
And how much do we pay them?
It's going to be minimum wage. It's about a $12,000 to $15,000 a year for a college intern at 20 hours a week.
You know, they maxed out right now in terms of number of interns we use.
We're always adding interns. Just depends on the need of the school. So yeah.
And then the next, Madam President, the next question to ask is how many combos are we going to have? And we don't know that until the beginning of the new year.
Yeah, typically we keep track of our combination classrooms. We've been at pretty level 70 combination classrooms across the district each year. So it's been about that every year.
Okay, thank you. Muchas gracias. Sí, tiene una
¿Se
pregunta.
podría poner en 10 clases y el próximo año evaluarlas? Esto sería $250,000.
Agregar.
Can we start with having that additional 25,000 in 10 classes and maybe evaluate it next year? This would be $250,000.
Thank you. We understand your request. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming tonight. Thank you, Ms. Lopez and ICUC. Board welcomes Justine Obiakor with the Indian Health. I may not have pronounced your name correctly, so I apologize. I'll let you pronounce it so we understand it correctly. Good evening and welcome.
Hi, good evening, board members and cabinet members. My name is Justine Obiaco, and I am here representing Riverside and San Bernardino County Indian Health. And I also have...
Hi, my name is Valerie Dobish. I'm also with Riverside San Bernardino Indian Health.
Great.
And so we just wanted to follow up. We also attended the ICUC meeting last week, and it was amazing. And hearing the parents' need for an expression that they want further mental health resources in the school districts. We have services that we provide. We basically go out and do tabling, presentations, anything on mental health. And so we would like to further collaborate. In the past, Indian Health has done, I believe, 4 years they did the Red Ribbon Week, but for whatever reason last year they were not. We did not have access to attend, and so we just want to show our willingness and how we're here. We do have funds that are provided by the San Bernardino County Department of Behavioral Health and funded by the Mental Health Service Act. So again, we have presentations, we have different tabling options, and we can really cater it specifically. We've done presentations on social media, cyberbullying, mindfulness, meditation. So we've gone out to a few schools and spoke to students as well as staff, counselors. So yes, so we just wanted to let you guys know we're really interested.
Thank
Yes.
you.
And
I
then Mr.
believe
Tillman and-
Dr. Perez has Dr. Perez, you have information, I believe, and we'll be reaching out to you at some point as well.
Just hold
so
on one
just
second,
listen.
though.
Yep.
Mr. Tillman?
I think it'd be great if Dr. Perez got with them. I think they said that a number that was designated for San Bernardino Unified School District for like $200,000. Or is it?
For the county. For the county
Is there-
county of San Bernardino.
So whatever the number, do you have a number just for the city schools?
No, I don't. It's for the county. For the whole county, we're serving the whole county of San Bernardino. But we're doing populations, LGBTQ, African American, and Native American, but we do all populations.
But my point is, whatever the amount of money that you have that can be used in our district, we want to max that out. Now, when you say $200,000 for the whole county, then that's different. That's not a whole lot of money because you're talking about 35 districts. So
$25,000.
So we definitely should be able to max that
That's
out.
a year. That's $200,000 a year.
No, I understand.
For the next 5 years.
Yeah, I understand. So I'm just, whatever that amount equates to in terms of services, we want to make sure we utilize it.
Right, and then
you.
Dr. Flores?
Yes, thank you for coming. I invited them to come to share because they wanted to help us, and that's very, very good. And Dr. Perez would be the one that you give your cards to because they do offer services, and our parents are asking for mental health support. And so if we're the ones that call you the most, then that's who they would go to. Mr. Tillman.
No, my only point is if it's going to be like $25,000, we got 70 schools. That's not a whole lot of.
No, but if we need them, they'll come.
I agree.
So, right.
So we should max them out.
So thank you very much for
Wonderful.
coming.
Thank
Hold
you.
on, we still have more comments.
Hi.
Hello.
Just want to thank you guys again. And again, just to echo what the board members, I'm so excited that our DBH partners are getting the message and we're understanding. I know you personally, so your services are great. We just need to collaborate with you so that you know where to be and know how to be. And I think with our wellness team approach, we're going to need you on the campuses of where we've already started it. So again, this is the Department of Behavioral Health who does this work, the specialists that do this work. So I'm so excited that
All
they're
right,
here.
thank you. And then also I will end with, I've personally worked with them, with the Indian Health piece and LGBTQ communities. And so this is something we definitely want to connect with. And it is maybe 200,000 countywide, but still that's some way we can still work with you in making sure that we expand services in our area. So thank you.
Thank you.
Just to
Thank
add, we
you.
also do have a licensed marriage and family counselor that can work with the community health workers. Thank you for your time.
Wonderful,
Great, thank you.
wonderful. Thank you so much for making the time to be here tonight. Really appreciate that. Board welcomes Miss Norma Mejia. Miss Norma Mejia. Oh, she already went. Okay, I apologize. Thank you. It was listed separately. My apologies. Okay, board, those are all of our comments until at the end of the presentation tonight. Ms. Betis Alcala does have a comment card in, so we'll call that at that point. At this point, you have...
We have, yes, so 5.0 administrative report. We have 5.1 local control accountability plan, LCAP, and budget update. And I do want to be mindful. I know in the past board meetings we have stayed late past, I'm okay with when we have really good conversations and discussion. But if you could be mindful for this for today's board meeting, a board workshop, that you try to write down your questions, and so that way we can help them we can help the board by first finishing the presentation and then trying to move with questions. If you don't mind, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you. So go ahead.
And so this board is at your request, as you have done since I've been working with you. You have really worked hard to, as you heard Mr. Martin compliment earlier, the level of transparency and authentic engagement of our community has been your desire from the beginning, especially when it comes to our budget, our local control accountability plan. And I got to compliment the board saying, before it became law and required, you were already doing these things. You already held meetings to call our public together and say, hey, we want your hands and fingerprints all over the work we do. And so this is an example of that. Tonight, we're grateful that our team has done a lot of work. I really want to compliment Janie Christakos, Dr. Keenan Mitchell, Janet, who I know is sitting behind Janet Terry, and so many others that have put a lot of hours into not just recent negotiations, but all the work that goes into preparing what's before you tonight. I want to also welcome and thank Patty Herrera for being here tonight from School Services of California. And I know that our intention is to provide not just the board, but our public who's watching on television, those that are here with us now, an overview of what's the state of the state in terms of the budget, and then bringing that down to our local level, what is our plan, and being able to have an opportunity for you to weigh in. And just as a reminder to our public, if you do want to speak to the board, this is a workshop. We just ask that you complete the blue card and bring the blue card to Ms. Karen Clark so that we can be sure that your comments are heard at some point after this presentation. So with that, turn it over to Ms. Christakos, and she will again introduce the team and open up the presentation.
Good evening, board. We're so pleased to have Ms. Herrera here. If you'll recall, I think she was here about 2 years ago and shared. She has a wealth of information. So actually, for the couple of slides that we're talking, we welcome your conversation, as she would love to provide information to you. As Dr. Marsden said, we're here to give you an update a little bit on the state budget. We're waiting for the May revise, so we don't have all the information to finalize our budget. And Dr. Mitchell will be giving an update on the LCAP. So this evening we'll talk a little about the state financial outlook. LCFF reaches full funding this current year, as you're aware of. We've talked about budget priorities. This board has been just invested so much in improving outcomes for our students. And as we reach full funding, we really narrow some focus areas. Obviously, we're here for education, so student achievement, professional development for our employees, and increased improved services for our students. We'll look at some revenues and expenditures that you saw in the second interim report, the LCAP calendar, and then we'll turn it over to Dr. Mitchell. So at the state, yesterday, we were looking at revenues being short about $2.9 billion. And then we got a report that because of the change in the tax law, a lot of folks filed their taxes late in April, and we actually are trending similar to what the governor proposed. I didn't know if you wanted to comment on that.
Yeah, at School Services, particularly as we're approaching the May revision, we watch the daily ticker on revenues, particularly in April. We were a little nervous this year because revenues coming into April were, as Janie had mentioned, almost $3 billion below the governor's estimates in January, which of course would have an impact on Proposition 98 and education funding in general. And so we were pleased to find that as of yesterday, revenues appear to be at the governor's January budget level. So it appears that we'll at least have the level of investments that the governor's proposing, notwithstanding potentially some policy changes because of negotiations with the legislature.
So the COLA has been calculated slightly less than we anticipated in January. It does not preclude the governor from augmenting the COLA like Governor Brown has done in the past. And with revenues coming in where they are, we expect it's going to be very close. And it is a small decrease in the COLA. As you're aware, Governor Newsom.
Mr. Tillman?
Can I ask a question on that subject? But you were School Services. With the negotiations with LA Unified and Oakland, I think in both cases they brought in the state think even the governor got involved?
In Los Angeles Unified, at least from what I read in reports, I believe it was the mayor who got involved in the negotiations with LAUSD to help settle that.
How about
Those
Oakland?
negotiations. In Oakland, it was the state superintendent,
State
Tony
superintendent.
Thurmond. Yeah, and that Mr. Thurmond was the legislator, one of the legislative delegates before he became state superintendent. So he's very familiar with that community, very familiar with that district.
But he didn't make any commitments from the state in terms
No,
of additional
absolutely
funding?
not. No.
Thank you.
All right, and I know, Mr. Tillman, you caught me as I was coming in, but just try to see if unless it's really urgent.
Ms. Christakis encouraged me to talk on these 2 slides.
Okay.
I did.
You did? Okay.
She told me
I
not to wait.
encouraged the board, not
Thank you.
just Mr. Tillman.
Oh, I thought you said Danny.
I know.
I think you just caught me because I
That's what
just
I meant.
got here because I had.
So what was great news that the governor proposed, and you've all heard, and districts across the state have been grappling with this increased cost of PERS and STIRS. So the commitment to bring districts to the 2007-8 funding level, and then we got increased costs on top of that. So his commitment to pay down specifically so schools' cost would be reduced for STIRS is about $3 million less in cost for us, which is significant. Now with the revenue tracking as proposed, we're excited because we believe that that January proposal will be of the the STIRS pay down will be part of the May revise.
Was that a
I
clarifying
wanted to
question?
ask Ms. Herrera, and if we get more money coming in, I don't recall the governor saying that he may increase, I thought I read it, may increase the STIRS money. Do you know if that's true or not?
I'm not sure where the governor would put additional revenues that would be coming into the state. As it appears right now, it looks as if revenues for May revision are going to be at his January levels. So at least the way that we look at it, that the budget that he proposes could be funded. I would just add to what Janie was referring to with respect to the interest in Sacramento to provide this relief to school districts. And I think it's notable that the $3 billion investment that Governor Brown, I'm sorry, that's 8 years of training, that Governor Newsom is proposing comes from the non-98 side of the budget. So it's not within Proposition 98, which is pretty courageous and laudable.
And
so,
if we do have more than what he proposed, then he may decide where to distribute it or put it in reserves, correct?
He could put it in reserves, and there are other stakeholders who are looking to fund other priorities, like California's housing crisis, for example.
Okay,
thank you.
all right, thank you.
And then, California's unemployment rate remains steady. It's almost at full employment at the 4.2%. Again, we'll know a lot more in the governor's May revision. And Ms. Herrera is going to talk a little bit about some of the negotiations going on at the state level.
So as I mentioned, we're really pleased that the revenues have come in to offset the unexpected lowering of the revenues coming into April. So it appears at least that the investments that the governor is proposing can be funded. We do know with respect to the education budget that the governor's proposal to fund the LCFF is non-controversial. All the legislators want to see the LCFF funded. The major, outside of the STIRS proposal that's not within Proposition 98, the biggest policy proposal and investment that's in Governor Newsom's budget is a proposal around special education. And I'm sure that your staff has informed you about the governor's proposal for this. It's not an equalization of special education funding, AB 602 equalization. However, there is a proposal that's going through the Assembly right now that proposes to equalize AB 602 funding. And so we've got that on the Assembly side, and so the Assembly is already signaling that that's how they would want to address funding issues in special education. On the Senate side, they have a proposal to provide a $4,000 grant to school districts who provide the majority of services to special education children identified when they're 3 and 4 years old. It's a $4,000 grant for essentially preschool services for preschoolers who have been identified with an IEP. So we think I think what's going to happen is as the governor gets ready to negotiate with both the Assembly and the Senate, these 3 proposals are going to come to the table, and the question is what will emerge. The Assembly's proposal to equalize funding across AB 602 is about a $1.4 billion cost. And you will recall that the governor's special education proposal is about $576 million. So the Assembly's proposal is a little bit more than what the governor would be proposing, and the Senate's proposal is along the same lines in terms of the investment that Governor Newsom is proposing.
Mr. Tillman has a quick clarifying question.
On the equalization funding, and you said it's $1.4 billion, is it going to be distributed based on ADA?
The proposal is, yes, it would bring, my understanding of the proposal, this is AB, I'm going to forget the bill number, it was 3136 last year, I think it's AB 428 this year, by Assemblymember Medina. It would be bringing all LEAs up to the 90th percentile in AB 602.
So,
Sorry.
Mr. Tillman, remember how revenue limit was, where every district was slightly different?
Right.
Our district actually is a low-funded SELPA. We're on the low end of funding, and so just getting everyone more equalized would be very beneficial for our district, as we're in the lowest percentile.
So we will get more than others, you're saying?
If they were to equalize.
Just because of where you are with respect to.
And then that money would be
funding.
restricted money, only be used to be spent on.
Special ed.
But would it help me in the area you're always concerned about, Ms. Christakis, in terms of the encroachment,
It's the contribution?
the contribution?
Yes. Yes.
It would benefit that.
It would.
That's new news. That's new good news. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
So I also just wanted to highlight for you that one of the areas within the budget that will probably be coming forward is a proposal by Assemblymember O'Donnell. He's chair of the Assembly Education Committee, who's really interested in revisiting Governor Brown's proposal around career technical education. You will recall that Governor Brown split CTE between programs administered by the Chancellor's Office, the Community College Chancellor's Office, and the California Department of Education. Mr. O'Donnell he would like career technical education in K-12 to reside under one department, the Department of Education. He's also proposing to increase the investment in CTE to $450 million a year, and I think this is really important for your local thinking to also reduce the district's match. So right now, for every dollar that the state of California gives you, you have to put in $2 of your own local dollars. And I think Assemblymember O'Donnell understands the effect that has on your ability to expand CTE. So he's actually proposing to reduce that matching requirement to a 1-to-1 to a 1-to-1 basis.
Okay, please proceed.
I just wanted to.
What does that number mean to us, Ms. Christakis?
I don't have it right now. So it's still in negotiation. I mean, it's not, we don't know.
And that it's an application that you have to file with the state superintendent's office.
It'd be interesting to know how much we spend right now, because that means we reduced our cost by that much.
We can get that to you.
Thank you.
Madam President.
Clarifying question?
Yes.
A quick one.
In terms of the CTE, it's a yearly budgeted item, right? It's not in our it's not legislated on an ongoing institutionalized basis.
That's right.
That's
Every
right.
year, the legislature appropriates.
Okay. Do you foresee at all that it could possibly be institutionalized funding?
Not on a continuous basis. I do think that it's something that the legislature and the governor is interested in sustaining. The question is whether or not the legislature and even Proposition 98 has the capacity to increase that funding as well as to decrease the local matching requirement as per Mr. O'Donnell's
So that's where we're at
proposal.
right now?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, please proceed.
I just also wanted to highlight for you, I know you're getting ready to adopt your LCAP for fiscal year 1920. I just wanted to highlight that beginning next year, with the 2021 LCAP. The State Board of Education is poised to adopt a new LCAP template, and I know that everybody sort of has LCAP fatigue around all the changes that we see almost every year with respect to the LCAP. But with the State Board, because of a budget trailer bill that was passed last August, is required to adopt a new template for purposes of achieving two things. They would like the expenditures expressed in the LCAP to better align to the budgets that you adopt every year. They also want to increase transparency around your expenditures in your LCAP and how you engage in your communities. In talking with your staff today, it sounds like you guys already do an amazing job with respect to community engagement, and I believe that what the state of California has envisioned for this is to really promote more meaningful dialogue among your stakeholders, including your staff, and to give them the tools to facilitate a conversation here at the local level, to focus on strategic planning based on the needs that are maybe even coming out of the state dashboard. So I just wanted to highlight for you that this will be coming to you, and I'm sure that your staff will keep you posted as the state board is poised to adopt that in January. With regard to other education proposals, you, I'm sure, have been hearing that there have been a lot of conversations in Sacramento, primarily around the governor's charter school task force that the state superintendent of public instruction has been facilitating. We anticipate that task force will be coming out with recommendations to make some proposed changes to charter school law, but particularly around fiscal impact, the fiscal impact that charter schools have on districts. And so I just wanted to highlight for you that that's a major policy discussion that's happening in Sacramento. I also want to highlight, just because of the history that this particular district has had in the state school facility program, that Assemblymember O'Donnell, the chair of the Assembly Education Committee, he is authoring a bill, AB 48, which will put the next statewide school bond on the primary, I don't know if it'll be in March, 2020 ballot. The dollar amount is unspecified. I understand that you recently adopted a facilities master plan, and I think that you're starting to, you were a major growth district in the early 2000s, and now you're looking at modernization. And so Assemblymember O'Donnell is working with stakeholders, including one of your staff members, to put a bond on the ballot. And the bill, AB 48, proposes a 2020 bond and a 2022 bond. So just understanding that we are burning through state bond authority very quickly in the state of California, and he doesn't want to have to come back with another bond bill. So that's also slated to go through the legislature this year to make it onto the primary ballot in 2020. So I just wanted to highlight that for you as well.
All right, thank you. Please proceed. And then, as you know, all the negotiations will take place. They have to have a budget to the governor by June 15th and adopted by the end of June. So we look forward to the May revise. The next slide you've seen, as we've reached full funding, you can see in the current year, the blue line represents the increase in LCFF revenue over the prior year. We reached full funding this year. But some of those major costs continue as we move forward, and we have our projected COLA. So that's the blue line moving through the years. You can see the projected increased costs at the top of the columns. And those major costs, the blue line is the step-in column, red PERS and STIRS, the green health and welfare, and the purple is the special education contribution. You'll notice when we get to 21-22 and 22-23 that the red portion of the column isn't as big because we get to the full rates that has been increased for us over this time. We expect to pay almost $40 million in increased PERS and STIRS over the previous rates. And so this chart illustrates there's also a bill, AB 39, that proposes some aspirational funding for LCFF. And I'm going to have Ms. Herrera talk about it a little, but I just wanted to draw your attention to this handout that CASBO provided. And it shows the grade span. This is how we receive our dollars per ADA. For example, in K3, the proposal is to move the per pupil rate to $12,188. Through 4.6, 12,377, 7.8, 12,475, and 9.12, 14,768. So it's, I think to fund it would be $35 billion, but there's support to provide more funding for education. So we really support that we have an aspirational goal of, but where it fits into Prop 98 and available funding.
What were those numbers you were reading?
Those were the base. So with our LCFF, our ADA, we get this amount per the grade level. We give you the aggregate that we
Right.
receive. And so those rates would increase significantly to get to the national average, correct?
Right, so the rates that Janie was reading off to you are the proposed base grants in AB 39, authored by Assemblymember Merritt Suchi. This bill has wide support in the legislature, not just in the Assembly. There's a lot of interest in increasing the base grants.
And for what year would that be
LCFF. If the bill gets signed, so right now the bill is in the Assembly Appropriations Committee. It's still in the Assembly, and it has to go over to the Senate and then presented to the governor for signature.
And where would the funding come from?
So with respect to the funding, CSBA, I know you had your representative come, so I'm sure you're going to talk about this when all of you make your appointments to see your legislators. I would certainly encourage you to talk about this. So CSBA, along with other statewide partners, is working on the full and fair funding initiative. And I know that I was speaking with one of their staff the other day, and they're doing some polling and would like to put an initiative on the 2020 ballot. It looks to be the general 2020 ballot. The polling that they're doing is they're studying which kind of taxation would resonate with voters. And so they're taxing, for example, the restoration of an estate tax. Which I guess was repealed. I didn't know that. I'm too young to know estate tax. I'm kidding. Or another type of millionaire's tax, for example. How do the voters react to that? So they're in the throes of doing some polling about that, with the intent of gathering enough signatures to put an initiative on the ballot. My understanding, at least in terms of the desire and the intent of an initiative like this, would be to sequester any funds that are generated from that initiative from the state's general fund. So unlike Proposition 30 and Proposition 55 revenue that goes through the state fund and then into Proposition 98, this would be sequestered from the state fund and be on top of Proposition 98, specifically for purposes of funding education. In addition to that, the legislature, there's some interest in a split roll, commercial property taxation versus residential property taxation. That's also being eyed for the 2020 election, even though that wouldn't be necessarily sequestered for education, specifically because it would benefit the general fund. By extension, it benefits Proposition 98.
That's good.
No, it hasn't. They've been trying to get this bill through for a couple of years, and so just.
All right,
Yeah.
and then that's just an update, though. I mean, the thing is that we have a few more slides. I can go to questions on page 8.
But I think this is still the slide she said I could talk. Is this still the slide I could talk, Ms. Christakis?
Okay, but then just make sure, a lot of it, just make sure that it's pertaining to what we're talking about now. I mean, a lot of the things
I always do that.
legislation, no, but the legislation piece, I mean, that's just something that we would be getting updates as it comes, so.
The slide you gave us with the bar graph, this one?
Yes.
That red bar in there, have you taken into account the new money to offset?
That's part of our projection at second interim, because we used the January budget proposal to reduce it.
But I'm just asking, does this graph,
Yes.
is the red, if you factor in the,
3 million less.
would the red get smaller?
No, it already got smaller.
That's fine. Thank you very much. And for me, I know I'm getting on the president's nerve, but it just process is better for me if I have an understanding. If I wait, then I don't understand it, and it's out of context. Thank you.
And I'll move through the next slides a little quicker
Right,
because you've
great, thank
seen
you.
all the next slides. At second interim, we showed our projected revenues. As you're aware, our largest source of revenue is generated through student attendance as well as our unduplicated account. So you can unduplicated count. We do still receive significant dollars in federal revenue and other state. You see the other local revenues. Those are some of interest as well as our successor agency, our RDA dollars. The next slide, again, you've seen this, is our expenditures. Primarily, our expenditures are in salaries and benefits. You can see supplies and also contract services. Within contract services are utilities and other required contracts that we might have for audit and things like that. This was the multi-year projection that was presented at that second interim, so nothing's changed. It's our total combined. So I'm going to move through it quickly since we went through it in detail just a month ago. The next slide, I did want to take a moment, and I would love if you would look at the screen as I walk through this one. We have our, instead of your PowerPoint, the first column was where we ended last year. This is just the unrestricted general fund. Shows the revenues, less expenditures. Line 3 shows a small deficit spending. It was planned, it was not a structural deficit. Our beginning fund balance, the ending fund balance of $61.5 million. And then you can see the set-asides reserved for economic uncertainties, TSSP, textbooks, and some one-time priorities that the board funded, some reserves for deficit spending. And then as we move through 2018-19, this is our projected for current year. And I'll move through it quickly, but you can see that we still have reserves. We did set aside money because we weren't sure how the governor's proposal was going to pan out. And looking at the revenues, we expect that we'll get what was proposed in January. But we just wanted to illustrate to the board, if you take dollars that are set aside in reserves, you see about 8.5 million there, and you spend them without making any adjustments to, should our revenue go up, should our expenditures be adjusted, how quickly the budget can change. And so this shows what happens when you spend more and don't make any adjustments. The ending fund balance comes down, not quite so significant in 2019-20, but when you move to 2021, you start to see a deficit, and then 21-22, that would grow if we add ongoing expenditures without making some sort of adjustments to either revenue or expenditures. And the best way to accomplish this is, of course, student attendance. Increasing our revenue is the best way to mitigate any increased costs. And I know we have a lot of work going around increasing our attendance for our students. And it's two-pronged. It's best for their educational experience as well as providing resources to our district.
Okay, and then I'll ask if there's any board comments, and then I'll start with Dr. Flores on that end.
Can we go back to page 5?
Page 5.
Yes. So the projections, I just want to reiterate Mr. Tillman's question for 2019 and 2020 for the red, right, for the PERS and STIRS. We've included, I just want to clarify, we included the amount that we're getting from the governor's budget.
What he proposed in January.
What he proposed,
correct.
okay. And then he hasn't proposed the same amount for the following year, has he? No, for 2020 to 21.
In 20.
It's multi-year.
It just reduces it by $3 million over the entire
So
project.
it's multi-year?
And
so why is it reduced so much in 2021, 22, 2022, 23? I would just like you to share with the public again, why it's reduced.
Okay, so as part of the unfunded liability for PERS and STIRS, they set into motion increased percentages that we had to pay up through for PERS it goes beyond 21, 22.
So now it's within our budget.
Yes, so we begin to get to those top rates that were projected over many, many years, so we've been going up each year.
Correct. And just for the public's sake, because the green looks like it's increasing, which is health and benefits and welfare, those are just projections, because each year we negotiate that with the insurance, and our SBTA has done a great job in keeping that down.
Yeah,
So these are not true projections. These are based on what it might be.
Correct. 1920 is, we know those rates for 1920.
Okay, we know.
Yeah.
So you see that it's not as big as 2021 or 21, 22 or 22, 23, because those have not been negotiated yet.
Correct.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Okay, and then Mr. Dr. Morrison had a comment.
So and maybe this is for Patty and Janie. This is also for the public. I think the board knows this very well, but you know, our budget's always a living document.
That's
so
right.
The board considers you know, items that are important, and we make adjustments throughout. But based on your experiences, when would be the most prudent time for the board to consider any potential additional dollars? Because you know, we've got a lot of requests that came tonight. Requests the board will meet, and when's the best, given you know what we know and your experiences, what's the best time for the most prudent time for the board to consider any additional dollars?
So we would want to know those dollars soon. Ms. King is trying to finalize the budget, a lot of work that's going into it. And so what we try to do is prioritize what must be put in the budget, and then we could bring a list to the board. It could be considered with carryover, or should revenues increase or any changes. Okay,
Yeah, and I don't know-
May, I'm sorry, May.
In May, yeah. So I don't know, Ms.
Early
Herrera,
May.
if you want to comment at all on that as well from your perspective. I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that the May revision is going to be very insightful for you as you try to adopt your budget.
Okay.
And we should know that,
I'm coming this way, so then I know Dr. Hill had a question. So if you're done, I know Barbara, if you want.
I wasn't quite done, but I just have a quick question. If AB, the equalization bill, AB 602, or if we have an additional one, that was for the preschoolers, but then you also said there was going to be additional money for special ed. If that bill passes, then we'll get additional monies, correct? For special ed.
equalization.
The Assembly Bill 428 is
428,
the AB
right.
602 equalization proposal. SB 217 is the Senate's proposal to
Right.
address special education needs of 3s and 4-year-olds, so preschoolers.
So that, it's just for 3, 4-year-olds, it's not for all of special ed?
SB 217 is just 3
It's for
and
special ed.
4-year-olds. Yes.
So if that passes, we're incurring that cost right now. So that would free up monies for us to be able to use.
If those bills pass and get to the governor in the fall, they would go into effect next January. So the soonest that you would see any effect in that would be next fiscal
The
year.
next fiscal year, okay.
We've
Yeah.
been
All right.
talking AB 602 equalization for many,
For
many
not
decades.
this year, but the following year. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Hill.
It's been a long
Dr. Hill?
conversation.
Thank you so much, Madam President. Thanks for the presentation. Just a couple of quick questions. I know you mentioned there will be a new LCAP template, and to somewhat align with the budget that we are putting into place, is that going to be in place so that we can do our alignment for 2019, 2020?
Not for your imminent adoption of your 2019-20 budget, LCAP, that will have a new feature called the budget overview for parents. So what you're getting ready to adopt will include that component. But in addition to that, in January of 2020, the State Board of Education will be adopting a new template just in time for the next 3-year LCAP cycle.
Okay.
And the design and the intent of that is to improve the alignment between your LCAP expenditures and your adopted budget, as well as to give you the tools to engage your stakeholders more, I guess, to make your LCAPs more accessible and your expenditures more accessible so that your stakeholders can engage meaningfully with you.
Okay, including the parents.
Yes, absolutely.
Great. Wonderful. And then with the Charter Task Force, that's AB 39, I believe you mentioned.
AB 39 is the Merit Suchi bill to increase LCFF-based grants. The Charter School Task Force is a task force that the governor was interested in convening that's being facilitated by the State Superintendent of Public Instruction. He established a panel of folks to participate and to discuss and develop recommendations around charter school policies. There's not a lot of information about public information about what's being done in the charter school task force. However, we've heard the governor talk about his interest in addressing issues of fiscal impact that charter schools can have in particular communities. And I'm not sure that San Bernardino is one of them, but we know just publicly that Los Angeles is a district that is greatly impacted by charter schools. Oakland Unified is another example of a community that is disproportionately impacted by charter schools. And I don't say that with any kind of value judgment about that. I'm just making a statement. And so this question is, what will the recommendations be from the Charter School Task Force? And there's the reason why they're looking for recommendations is so that they can then propose changes in law.
Okay, and then I was just wondering with that, because in San Bernardino, we have 12 or 13 charter schools, and, you know, we certainly will support the law and continue to support the law, but there are surrounding districts with none. Is there anything going to be in this task force, as a result of this task force, that, you know, we want to spread everybody out and be fair?
Yeah.
And still be in compliance, but you don't know if anything of that nature will be in there.
That level of detail hasn't been released.
Okay, and when do you expect the report out from the task force for that?
My understanding is that that the task force recommendations are due by July 1st, but I understand that the state superintendent is interested in trying to get the recommendations out sooner than July 1st. So sometime in June.
Okay, good.
Probably early to mid-June.
All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, and then we have Ms. Rogers.
I just had a quick question. I think, Janie, it was when you pulled this form out, and I was looking for, I know you had, I heard a 12,000, and then I was trying to follow and find out where it was when you started with the K through 3.
Yeah, I was reading from the bill that,
okay.
so these are the current rates.
This is the current, okay.
And the aspirational goal, which could take, if it gets through, many, many, many years, just like
Okay.
LCFF took
Okay.
us 6 years.
6 years.
6
Okay.
years.
Okay.
You can see what K3 is on here.
Right now, currently, what it
And they're
is.
proposing up to 12,188.
Okay.
And so those are the proposals
that's
to get us
something
to the
long-term.
national average.
The national, and so the national average, is that full and fair funding, will that bring us closer to it? Or if when we talk about the full funding piece, as opposed to what LCAP can take us to?
So LCFF, we're still 40, we range, so some districts get more than others,
Right.
from 48th to 43rd, we're like 46th in the nation.
Right.
So we still have a long way to go. And that's why the desire to get California back before Prop 13, we were near the,
Right,
we
the
were
top.
near the top. And so we've dropped since that time, and the goal is to get that funding back up there. It just will take a source of funding to do it because it's $35 billion.
So this is the main discussion with our legislators when they come. All
And
right,
we
thank
want to
you.
support this bill.
Absolutely.
At least to have it out there as a goal.
Right.
It's important.
Right, no,
Thank
that's
you.
good.
Mr. Gallo.
Yes, thank you. Is there any incentive for the PERS and STIRS investment portfolio to perform? And, or is it just fall back out on the taxpayers to make up any deficits that they're either poor investment decisions and or, failure to reach projections?
I'm not sure what's in place with respect to the infrastructure of the STIRS board or the PERS board that would have intrinsic incentive to ensure that their portfolios are performing. I do know that sometimes there is legislation when the United States or when California has a dispute with the country over which we do trade or we have some kind of commercial agreement. There has been legislation in the past to prohibit investment in a particular country. So, for example, that whether or not that actually hurts or benefits the portfolio, I'm not sure.
Yeah, and I'm just kind of more in line with are we getting our money's worth in whoever's managing our portfolio? And, if the ultimate end is the burden falls on the taxpayer, there's really no incentive for performance in a portfolio, which is a recipe for disaster, if you ask me. And so hence we, end up paying all of these costs and yanking it out of public education to fund, basically to fund our poor investments.
I can't speak to that, I'm sorry.
Do we have any assessment as to what the rate of return is that we're getting on any of these portfolios?
Every year, the PERS board and the STIRS board have to issue an actuarial.
That would be just interesting, maybe, Janie, sometime to let us know how they're doing, say, just out of, the television show Top Pick.
Okay.
It'd just be interesting to see how they compare to just, general investment practices.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Tillman?
And Mr. Gallo, historically, they've been somewhat aggressive. They set sometimes the investment at 8% in order to make the numbers, which is really, in a time like this, you're really being aggressive. And I think some of the law changes have been to ensure that they are more realistic about their returns. And that's why it's forcing entities to pay more money to make sure that the retirement systems are more secure. Jane, I had a question on page 9. So these numbers are from first, second, and third interim?
Second interim.
Second interim?
Just unrestricted.
Just unrestricted. And for instance, the original budget, what was the projected excess of revenues less expenditures? The red number, 22 million.
I do not have the adopted budget here, but I can get that to you.
That'd be good to see. And then where it falls out, where it says unappropriated.
Yes.
Was that at the beginning of the school year?
No, so as the budget, every time we come to the board, we make adjustments for revenues. In fact, even in between any first or second interim, if there's a grant, we bring it for board approval. And so the budget gets updated throughout the year. So we adopt it in June. We know more at the first interim and then the second interim. And so Ms. King and her team looks at spending trends. And at second interim, it looked like there was almost $7 million that would not be spent. And we'll see more as they're analyzing our estimated actuals, which you'll see in June.
And I guess my question, is this one-time money? Was it ongoing?
I would say we've talked about this, that it is ongoing in the fact that ongoing for this year, but when you look at those increased costs, it helps to pay those increased costs because we were fully funded this year. And our revenue this year, our increase this year was higher than just getting a COLA because we reached LCFF full implementation.
Because, I mean, like, for some of the stuff that's brought up tonight, it doesn't cost a lot of money. Why couldn't we commit to doing a pilot, for instance, if staff has the expertise and say, yeah, the sites would benefit from having an intern at some of the combo classes, and part of the reason why we don't is the cost. Now, I'm not saying that's the case. If Dr. Mitchell and Dr. Marsden come back and say, no, we really don't benefit from having a intern in all our classes, and that's a whole other story. But if the only thing that's stopping it is money, then, to pay for interns is a one-time cost because they're not full-time employees, right? So why couldn't we have that discussion?
So I think Dr. Marsden was talking about that. We've been looking at all the requests to meet and support our priorities for the year and incorporating that into our budget development. And so we can add that to the list of what we're evaluating.
Yeah, because to answer Dr. Marsden's question, I think I'm an expert on our budget in San Bernardino. And now is the time to talk about spending and additional spending for next year. Now's the only time for that discussion, because your team is looking at building the budget for next year. Just a few variables out there in terms of negotiations and the May revise, but now is it. And then the numbers that, like these unappropriated numbers, you have to factor in what you're looking at in terms of negotiations and new money. But those are the type of numbers that I think should be afforded to the board at some point to say, what do you want to spend additional money on? And I'm assuming that, maybe not, the group that was here tonight talking about the additional interns and classes, they weren't there for the LCAP?
ICUC.
I can't say that they were represented or not. I'm sure they had members, but as a formal group, they weren't. They were part of it, but they didn't formally present themselves as ICUC at LCAP.
And really, for me, in this whole budget process, the young lady from this, what's your name again?
Patty Herrera.
Ms. Herrera. Ms. Herrera talked about LCAP and having money associated with LCAP, and that's a new plan. We do that now, though. So it'd be interesting to see what the parents thought was working, not working, what the community thought was working, what you guys thought was working and not working, things we want to add, take away. But it'd be nice to see what that number is, and then maybe we could add some money to it. The good thing about our LCAP, if I remember right, a lot of it was based on one-time spending, so that in case we had a downturn and money went away, then we wouldn't have to lay off a lot of people and be hurt in that way. But if there's money set aside and we have people who are requesting stuff, I think at some point there should be a list that comes before the board, and we decide how we're going to pay for some of these things that people are asking for. I'm assuming some of that happened in the LCAP process, but I think it has to filter up to the entire board because we don't all attend the LCAP meeting. So there's got to be some role where the board plays, Ms. Christakis, and say, here's the list of items that the board would like to see us do, and here's the money. That has to happen, I think.
Janie, can I add a little something on the combination classrooms? So just some information for the board. There was a parent meeting maybe a year ago at Richardson Prep, and some of the board members did attend that meeting, and they did share some concerns with combination classrooms. And then I did follow up with a few of the board members and shared that we were contracting with Hanover Research, and they came in and looked at our combination classes and did a literature review and research on what are the best practices around the placement of students in combination classrooms as well as the placement of the teachers. So we do have that report. We're looking to move forward into the 1920 any combination classroom. We want to make sure the right kids are placed into those classrooms as well as the right teachers. So that is a piece of this, but it's not the intern piece of it, but there are some best practices that we're looking to
And
employ.
was there any discussion about having additional staff in those classes?
I don't believe the report said that was a best practice. It was more about the placement of the students, which students should be in the combination classroom, high, low, so on and so forth, as well as which level of teacher. Should it be your most experienced, least experienced, so on
So I
and
think
so
we should
forth.
have the
So-
open conversation because I want to make sure we're honest with the public. If we're not going to consider putting additional interns in combo classes, then we need to have the discussion right now. Because if you agree that it benefits, then the only question is, do we have the funding to do it? But at some point, I think we ought to have that discussion, agendize it or.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, I think that would be something that so the recommendation would be looking at how we would spend, or how we would look at spending the unappropriated ending balance by board recommendations.
Right.
And then I know, so that would be a conversation. I'm not sure, would that happen today? If
If
not,
I
we
could-
would have
if I can
another day
address-
to talk about how we would look at doing that?
If I can address the board's questions. So we've been working on the budget. Mr. Tillman and board, we've received millions of dollars in new requests. So certainly not just this one. What we're doing is waiting on the May revise to get more information, and we will make budget adjustments between the May revise. We're going to propose tonight that the board hold a special board meeting on May 28th, so that you have an opportunity to, the cabinet has an opportunity to present the LCAP budget, the things that we think need to be funded, as well as a list of priorities. The board will need to go through the priorities in relation to where we land with negotiations, in relation to where we land with May revise, what dollars are available, considering all the millions of dollars that we have in requests, not from community, from schools, from staff, from board, from our continuing work. And on the question of one-time dollars, what we found, Mr. Tillman, is that we've designated dollars for one-time things, but found that we had to continue one-time dollars to sustain the programs that we created with the one-time dollars. And so that over a few years adds up to a significant amount. So what we'll do on the 28th is present a clear LCAP budget with allocations per line items that includes all of the input from the community, schools, administrators, teachers, parents, students, so on and so forth. Tonight, I'm going to share some of the input process that we've used for 1819. We didn't want to be premature in presenting allocations to you tonight because that could change with May revise, and so we've
But
decided to
we
wait
can
on that.
add, so if, like, for instance, that
So
we can, if you
add to the
suggest
list.
that
We-
to
My
Dr. Mitchell.
My only caution is, we're not, the board is not asking for the next budget proposal to come back and say we have $10 that the board can.
We're gonna give you a recommendation, Mr. Tillman.
Let me just say, I just want to make sure it doesn't
Yeah.
come back. 'Cause and I'm not being facetious because this has happened in the past. Where, yeah, you got some new money, but we already know where it should go, and you guys got $10 left. So we really want to be open about what the suggestions are, proposals are, and give the board the ability to make some decisions on after we've heard the information on what we think the new money or the unappropriated money should be spent on. And I'm saying that not because we're board members, but I'm saying that because the board has responsibility to the community. And when they invite us out to these meetings and they ask us to consider spending money on certain things, they're doing it with the trust that we're going to hear them and work with district staff to ensure that if you agree that this is going to benefit our students, that their input is heard and it will be funded.
So well, their input is heard and it will be considered for funding.
Exactly.
But not just a blanket promise that it will
I
be
also
funded.
agree with Mr. Tillman, because you can't say, oh, this is what's left, and you can spend
We're in
whatever you
agreement.
want.
We're in agreement.
And we were at the meeting, 250 parents were there. If there would have been a bigger place, it would have been more. I even recommend that we go out into the community and have special meetings, because they were able to be all there in that one place. I would like us to go to them, because that way all of us can hear them at one time, and it would only be one agenda item, their concerns. I think that would be very fruitful.
But remember,
also,
but this is my time. I'm in my time here. So
I also want to say that I agree that we should do 10 a pilot. Perry said that we already have interns.
He said 15,000. It wasn't 25,000. It
Right.
was 15,000.
So that's a discussion that we need to have.
Yeah, let's
and hear
agendize
all
this
the items. But I got to say this: we need to do it by the next meeting. This is the time frame right now where
Right.
So
everything's
we're
happening.
proposing May 28th, board.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Then we'd be
Okay.
followed by a public hearing and then final board adoption.
Sounds great. Thank you.
And then we have Ms. Rogers, and then after Ms. Rogers, Mr. Gallo.
Yes. I just want to say, I agree with I attend so many meetings and I hear so many things that the parents are wanting. And we're capturing that though. So
Absolutely.
now, so what with that list, I'm trusting the list of who shows up, who's recommended. I mean, the group list goes on and on.
Absolutely.
But at some point in time, the priority of the priority has to be prioritized. Otherwise, someone can come make another compelling argument tonight and then next board meeting, and then we just move it on the list. I don't like that process, and I don't want us to do that as a board. It's the same thing that we're going to do with our list of things that we've talked about, and then someone comes and says something else, and it's important. But at some point in time, we got to look at the priorities and keep them the priorities. Otherwise, we're just, okay, this person was more compelling than the next. And at the end of the day, if it is not moving academic achievement, if it is not taking a student from where they are, then we got to look at it's a nice to do. I mean, at some point in time, we got to go back to the old fashioned nice to do, must do, and all of those lists versus I like this thing and I want to have it done. So I'm hoping that's what we're looking at doing. I remember last year and I think you guys gave us another long list. We looked at it and moved some things around, but we can't just come back and say, okay, well, I promised this, I promised that. I've heard some great things every board meeting, but we can't say yes to everything. We cannot do that. And we cannot say yes to just because someone said it better than the next person. Where are our priorities? Because by the time we get to the end of the year, it's 12 months of different things that keeps coming to us. So we as a board have created priority lists that we're up here right now with a sheet to prioritize things that we already had before we even came to this meeting. But then we're already projecting to add some other things. And that's why we get so off with the budget, because we really can't do everything. But we got to prioritize what we do want to do and then stick to that. And I agree with you if this is the time to do it. But I don't think it's the time to do it tonight, because I've looked what's going to come up on the PowerPoint. We don't have all those items. So the 28th is what you were saying, Dr. Mitchell?
Yes, the 28th.
Right.
We're
Then we
proposing
can
a special
relook
board meeting.
at, because I can't remember them all, and I don't even think they're all of the ones that we have on this list.
Plus
But
all
as
plus all the ongoing stuff.
Exactly.
Guys,
exactly. And you said something very important, Dr. Mitchell. There is so many things that have come before us that they were in either pilot mode or let's try it. And some of those things work and they're good. So we have to look and say, we're going to keep doing this, but we know it costs money to keep doing that, and not turn around and say, let's keep doing that and then add another one, and we're right in the same place. So that's what I want to hear, and that's the only way I can look. I cannot just look at the money is there, that's great and wonderful, but what are we applying the money to is really what we always have to stay focused. $6 million, wow, great. But do we really know what we want to do with it, or is it just a big number that?
Okay, great. Then Mr. Gallo?
Yes, I know, Keenan, you had put together a process last year and refined it and all, and I trust that was an excellent job, I think, at the end, where we did get a chance for the entire board to go through, set priorities. You had everything listed. You cited the sources. When it was a very, very comprehensive list, and I'm sure that's what you're
we'll replicate the process,
compiling now.
Mr. Gallo.
That's the right way to do it.
So I know there's some
Really,
anxiety
really
and
is.
anxiousness, but we are right before May revise. And what this cabinet has done, we've been meeting constantly about budget for the last month or two. We all in all of our desks have proposals, not only just from our community and stakeholders, but also our principals, directors, teachers. It's not just one body.
Right.
Plus, considering all of our ongoing costs, also considering our negotiation process. These are all things that are somewhat in the air. I know it creates anxiety for the board because we're right here at this place where decisions got to be made. But we want to give you every confidence, board, that we're going to bring all of that information for your consideration for May 28th.
Okay, great. And so then I do have a few questions as well. With regards to page 5, and I guess when you look at page 7 regarding the health and welfare, I just want to make sure, what does that include? Is that all the benefits when we look at page 5?
Yep, page 5.
And the green area?
So, yes, that green portion is health and welfare benefits for our employees.
Okay. And just to note, and just to clarify, our district pays full benefits?
There's a soft cap, so the employee and their family can be on the lowest paid plan, lowest cost plan.
Okay.
And if you want a higher plan, you pay up for that.
Okay, but what does that mean, though, that they pay 0%? They pay 0%?
That's correct.
Is there any other districts that do that locally?
Many districts have capped it, and they have, we'd have to do a survey to see
I was
what
just
other
curious to
districts are
see if there
doing.
was
And so,
any other districts locally that do that.
many have caps on that, and depending on their funding,
They would just
and
pay
their
the
priorities, yes.
Okay. So then our district does cover 100%
It
of
does.
it? All right,
Yes.
great. Just wanted to clarify that. With regarding the STRS, and I know this is not something that we have control over, but that was something when I became a school board member that I just didn't understand with regards investments, because essentially they're investments, right? And that go sour or they can profit. And so that was a concern of mine, because I thought, well, then if I had an investment and I did poorly, then somebody else would cover the cost, because then I don't hold up to my own responsibility of investing.
I think part of it, and Ms. Herrera can help, but during, there were some increased benefits years ago that were given to STRS members. And when you think about the number of folks that are retiring, and you consider that we had one of the worst recessions, it was the worst since the Great Depression, so investments were really low. And when they did their actuarial, they saw they were 187 billion underfunded, I believe. It was a lot of money.
180 billion.
And so it was a combination of giving additional benefits at some point, and it's a state mandated program for our certificated employees. We don't have a choice. We don't have anything to do with the investments. So there's a number of reasons that they were underfunded, including what happened to the stock market during those very difficult times for everyone. Does that make sense? And so they have to bring in an actuarial, and they study how many people are going to retire, when will they retire, how long will they live, what are their benefits, and do we have enough money to pay for it?
Okay. Yeah, it was just confusing to me how that actually worked, and then who holds the board, I guess, accountable for making sure that they're looking at that appropriately. So that was just something that I was agreeing with Mr. Gallo. I just didn't understand how that worked. Okay, and then we can proceed.
And I am right here. You see we're in April having this discussion. The May revise next month, and then we'll have a follow-up board meeting with everyone before we have the, May 28th, and we will then have the public hearing and the adoption of the budget and LCAP, and I'm pleased to turn this over to Dr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Ms. Christakos. So I covered a little bit, board. Tonight's purpose on the LCAP update. The board has communicated the importance of engaging our school community in getting feedback and input on the LCAP development process. And so tonight is just to reinforce and restate the engagement approach that we've taken in the district to gain the board's confidence that we've engaged our stakeholders, we've listened to them, we've asked for their input and feedback, and their fingerprints will be on the plan that you'll see on May 28th. And so just wanted to walk you through the process. You won't see numbers tonight, as I stated earlier, that we're really waiting on the May revise to guide our efforts and work, as well as our negotiations with our unions. And so I'd like to turn your attention just to tonight's objectives. Is to share the local control and accountability plan, update on stakeholder input and reoccurring themes that we found. So in the latter slides, you'll see a a summary of the emergent themes that came out across all of our stakeholder groups. And then lastly, to kind of gather your input as well. This next slide, we always bring this back to you to show this is a graphic representation of the relationship between our district beliefs, missions, and the LCAP, and to show that our LCAP is really supporting our beliefs, our mission, our objectives, and as you know, the bottom line is our KPIs, or our key performance indicators. And so this provides a guardrail for us to ensure that we're staying on track with our spending, to make sure that ultimately, to Ms. Rogers' point, is that our spending is aligned to improving student performance, student wellness and safety, and increasing parent involvement in our schools and engagement in our schools. And so we need to make sure that we're doing that. That's the bottom line. The next slide. When we talk about the LCAP, we've structured the LCAP across 3 goals, and so every expenditure that you'll see in the LCAP will align to these 3 goals. These are our LCAP goals. All of our LCAP expenditures align to these 3 goals. First and foremost is academic achievement. You all have stated that you want to see our children excelling academically, so that it provides as much promise and opportunity to their futures as possible. We believe that the youth, a well-educated, well-rounded college and career youth, ultimately will improve the overall community, and so we strongly believe in that. Secondly, the board has asked us to have a priority around school culture, climate, safety, and wellness. And so goal 2, all of our activities that are around goal 2 really focus on our kids feeling safe, feeling nurtured, feeling loved and respected in safe and welcoming school environments. The third goal is really around making sure that we engage our students, our communities in the work that we're doing. These goals serve as a guardrail for our spending. This keeps us data driven and ensures that all of our LCAP expenditures add value to one of the 3 goals here. And so that is how we gauge our first step. That's how we gauge the value of any program, staff, program initiative, strategic initiative that we consider for funding for LCAP. The next slide, just an overview of our LCAP, and Ms. Herrera has provided a lot of information about what's coming down the road in terms of LCAP. But just the LCAP is a 3-year plan. It describes the district's goals, actions, and activities. The 1920 LCAP will be the 3rd year of the 3-year LCAP cycle, and that's why you see proposed changes to the template coming at the close of this 3-year cycle. So what we're going into, 1920, will represent the second 3-year cycle of the LCAP plan, and so we'll go into a new template and so on and so forth. During the 1920 year, the district will develop a new 3-year LCAP. This is a graphic representation of our approach to soliciting input from our district school community. The outside circle represents the district and community, the board, and so on and so forth. The inside circle represents the school community. That's our teachers, our support staff, our classified staff, our students and parents. And our principals, if you see the linkage between our principals, the principals serve to link our schools, district, and community. And so what we've done here is that we've done 3 iterations throughout the year, or 3 opportunities to engage at both concentric circles to ensure that we've gotten, we don't just do one LCAP meeting to get input and feedback. As you've seen from our LCAP calendar, there's over 22 meetings in the calendar, and it represents the interests of the larger community, which is represented by the outside circle, and of course our internal school communities, which is represented by the inside circle. And the link for that are principals and giving us the input that we need to write, because ultimately the district has no kids in it, the schools do, and so we really want to make sure that we focus our efforts on what's most beneficial in terms of activities and programs and services at the school level, thus speaking to the local control and accountability. A lot of control has been given to us as a district, and we've extended that control to school sites so that teachers and school leaders are making decisions for the particular school context for each school. Next slide. So this is just an overview of our stakeholder process. So multiple LCAP stakeholder meetings and workshops were held during 2018-19 to share monitoring updates and to gather stakeholder input, including 4 LCAP meetings with all community members, parents, students, school staff, parent advisory groups were invited to share progress on the 18-19 LCAP and gather input, including the upcoming meeting on May 30th. Okay. Additionally, the LCAP meetings were held to provide an update on the 18-19 priority areas, build stakeholder capacity, and gather input. So we've held 6 district-level parent advisory group meetings. That's with DAC, DAC, DAAC, DLAC, 2 each of those. 2 LCAP federal addendum meetings with parent advisory group leadership boards. So that are the officers of our DAC, DAAC, and DLAC. 3 board updates, the first and second interims, as well as tonight. So this is the 3rd board update on the LCAP process. 3 site-based parent advisory leadership workshops. So these are workshops that the principals held to keep their school site councils, their ELACs, and their APACs advised and involved in the input in the LCAP development process. And then, of course, we got the 3 upcoming board dates. Plus, we just added another one for May 28th, where we kind of talking about the budget revision. It's the May revise, the public hearing in June, and the LCAP approval late June. And we've just added another meeting May 28th, so that you can see the details and the allocations and the board priorities. And so you'll have some input as well, the final input, so to speak. And so what we want to do here is the last meeting, overall we've had, this is a summary of all the meetings. We've had at least 21 district level LCAP meetings related to LCAP, receiving 568 distinct pieces of information and input received from our stakeholders, from parents, teachers, classified. This is our last meeting, was on April 18th. And you'll see the community stakeholder groups there. And so based on the input, what we did was we coded all the pieces of information and we categorized them according to emergent themes. And so the themes these are real broad-based in general. What you'll see are the specifics of the requests and ongoing costs and new costs. And so the cabinet will propose a fund LCAP budget. And then also the cabinet will provide you a list of priorities and allow you to do what we did last year, to Mr. Gallo's point, is a kind of a thorough work session to allow the board to consider all of the input from our broad community down to our classified staff and teachers at each of the schools, as well as principals and so on and so forth. And you'll see that they've landed on professional development. Our teachers are hungry for increased opportunities to learn more and do more and build their skill and knowledge, because we as we've stated before, that building the skill and knowledge of our staff is one of the most important things to moving student performance. The support, people have asked for additional support staff. That ranges from everything from aides, interns, college interns, instructional aides, even additional classified supports like custodial support and so on and so forth, ground support, all the way up to program specialists, additional teachers, and those kinds of things. So we've said support staff broadly. Parent engagement trainings. Our parents are hungry for A to G workshops, and our parents of young children are asking for workshops to learn how to teach their children reading and math and numeracy in the home and support their kids doing well. They've also asked for additional supports in being able to monitor their children's grades, like say through Aries and so on and so forth, and giving us a lot of input on the best ways to communicate. The home to school communication piece has been really important to our parents. The college and career readiness and pathways. Our parents are excited. You heard from parent a couple board meetings ago that talked about the opportunities that we've created through pathways, and so it's no small thing for parents to come and say, hey, we love this and we want more of it. because the opportunities and for growth that they're seeing in their children has been amazing. Technology, of course, as that continues to move, there will always be requests for additional computers, texts, different ways of being and knowing and conveying knowledge through technology in the classroom. So that's always big. And then there's the programs, wellness. Our parents have conveyed support for additional supports around student wellness, counseling, therapy, safety, bullying, all those kinds of things, so parents can feel that their children are in safe and nurturing and welcome learning environments. And so that was big. Parents love Avid. And so parents, there's just broad-based support for Avid, not just from parents, but also our school leaders and teachers. VAPA, this board has made significant investments in new instruments and the teen music workshop and uniforms, the drum line, mariachi, and so on and so forth. And so in an environment, to Janie's point, where we went through a recession, that a lot of districts cut their VAPA programs, their academic teams, and so on and so forth. This district has made increased investments in both the athletics, our facilities related to athletics, and in our VAPA. And so we just think that's the moral imperative is to ensure that our kids have different avenues to show their brilliance. We know that kids learning to play music, to read music, we know that's a whole nother language, and we know that adds tremendous value to our children's success in life. And so, and then sports, I've spoken to that. Our student leaders, these are comments coming from the Superintendent Student Advisory Board, where they want additional opportunities to connect with each other, to be a part of the improvement of San Bernardino City. They've asked to put on kind of activities where they're able to link with other high schools. They voiced an isolation between high schools that they want to close that bridge on. There's so much technology that can aid us with that, and the students are just taking lead with helping us to do that. And then lastly, enrichment. Our parents voiced concern around, we have a lot of supports for our lower achieving students, and they'd want an equal amount of investment in creating enrichment opportunities. The board has done that through your investment with study trips. You gave $500,000 last year and the year before to ensure that our schools are taking kids out of the school and giving them opportunities. We're doing that. Schools are spending that. Our kids are getting out and seeing things and being involved in things across the board. In fact, I was at a school the other day observing, and the class was leaving to go to the Columbian History Museum in downtown LA. And so the kids were all excited about that. They had they all prepared a report that they were all different. They would all go see different parts of the museum and convene that information and contribute to a project they were doing on Columbia. So those are the kind of activities that this board has provided. We're proud of that. We think that has contributed significantly to the progress that we're making across the board. And so our intent, board, is to continue that, is to help this board figure out how to do it all with less, figure out how to do it all with the same amount, to ensure that you're able to hit your priorities while considering the needs and wants and desires of this community, and looking at the community as an expanded community, that a school community involves our teachers, our classified staff, our support staff, as well as our parents and students. And so we're committed to doing that. And so what you'll see on May 28th is the full package, and we'll rely on your leadership to give us direction. So thank you.
Okay, great. Any board comments? If we can start with Dr. Flores and all the way down here. Yes,
I just thank you very much. This process is intensive.
Yes, it is.
And and I'm really proud of us because we include all the stakeholders and provide input and so forth. And just want to remind the board that we already passed a 3-year LCAP, and some of these requests can also come from our general fund. We just don't have to provide all for LCAP, because in terms of our priorities, in terms of the needs, and It's really great, Dr. Mitchell, to see how you categorize, because I did happen to go to some of the LCAP meetings, and it was really intense, and people really got into it, everyone, and it was very productive, very, very productive. And I think Terry Komnick is here. He helped a lot, and so did you, Dr. Mitchell, you led it. I don't see anybody else right now, but I think Anna Applegate was there as well.
Absolutely.
Tasha was there. I can never say her last name. How do you say
Tasha
her last
Dwyzen.
Dwyzen.
Dwyzen. Yes.
Suda. I can never say her last name.
Venkatesan.
Okay, so so it was really good to have our coordinators and our directors there as well, and of course the parents. I would love to see more kids, but I know they have to do their homework and so forth.
Yeah.
But I'm really proud of us. I really, really am. And but I just wanted to make us aware that we've already passed a 3-year LCAP, and I think these are just some of the additional things that they want us to continue.
Yeah.
And I think this will be a great stepping stone also for the next
Absolutely.
for the next 3 years as
Thank
well.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Flores.
All right, thank you, Dr. Flores. Dr. Hill?
Thank you. Really enjoyed you sharing this information, and you've done a really good job here. But also, as I sit here and we talk about social media and everything, I'm hoping either through communications or some department, I know there are parents and businesses look at what we're doing live stream, but it should be nice to walk in a Stater Brothers and see a sign showing what we're doing.
Nice.
Or go into Walmart and see what we're doing.
It's a great
or even
recommendation.
going into a church just to share what we're doing. And I mean, it's phenomenal. I think this is total transparency with the involvement of staff, even at the school level, at the district level, the board, and everyone else. But it would be just good if we can get this information out.
Yeah,
just
thank
a
you,
little bit-
Dr. Hill.
little
That's a
bit
great
more.
suggestion.
Okay, all
All
right.
right.
Thank you for a great job.
Thank you, Dr. Hill. Ms. Rogers?
Thank you again for the presentation. This was great. One thing I would ask Dr. Mitchell, if possible, so when we get the sheet again, which we really liked how you put everything together, but how you have these themes on here,
Yes.
maybe they can fall into the themes as we look at them, and then also line them up with the priority, so we can really say, okay, but this was under the priority. Kind of help us with the conversation along. But this is great how this is, but I'd like to see what those things were under those
Absolutely.
categories.
It's a great suggestion. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
We'll do that.
Great, thank you, Ms. Rogers. Mr. Gallo?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I was kind of thinking on the same lines that we'd have kind of a matrix that would show, these particular items, which say maybe one of the, now 5 strategies,
Yes.
maybe the
Oh,
5
yeah.
or 9 strategies,
Aligned
however many
to
we
the
are
community
now,
engagement plan,
as well
yes.
as the priorities, fall in, just so we can see.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, you did that last year.
Yes.
It was great. Thanks, Keith.
Thank you, Mr. Gallo.
Thank you, Mr. Gallo. Mr. Tillman?
Yes, and I want to say thank you to Ms. Herrera and Ms. Christakis and to Dr. Mitchell. A great presentation. I'm looking forward to the meeting in May. I really think that it's critical that when the groups come in, all the groups, and they voice their concern about what they want, the one thing that builds confidence is that we allow them to prioritize what's important to them.
Yes.
And make sure everyone gets something. And it doesn't cost a lot of money to make
Right.
sure everyone
Absolutely.
gets something. But if people don't get something, they feel like they waste their time.
Yeah.
So whether it's allowing them to get rid of something and move the money someplace else,
Right.
or if we were able to realize some new money, allowing them to have some input on how that's used, it benefits the entire district. And that's not one group, that's all the groups.
I agree.
And in the past, we've done that.
Yes.
And I think that's why we have a level of confidence that you're not wasting your time when you come to these meetings. And when you talk to board members, you really can affect change and get things done. And I think everyone has their own perspective. And that perspective, in the end, has the potential to benefit our kids. And that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. We agree totally. Thank you, Mr. Tillman,
So
for saying
thank
that.
thank you to all you and all your support staff that's here tonight to help make
Absolutely.
this report possible. Thank you.
Oh, great. Thank you. Like all the board members mentioned, this is a great presentation. It does help us see where the needs are at and look at the monies. So I appreciate you all coming down and presenting this to us. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Madam President. And with that, we do have a comment by Ashley Beta-Salcala, so we welcome her. And I echo the thanks to Ms. Herrera and Ms. Christakos and Dr. Mitchell. Thank you so much for your preparation and the team's preparation as well.
Thank you, Dr. Mercer.
We also have additional comments after Ms. Beta-Salcala.
Good evening, board again. I'm Ashley Beta-Salcala, president of the San Bernardino Teachers Association. And I just have a couple of informational items that I wanted to bring to your attention in regards to the budget presentation from tonight. So it's been talked about quite a bit that we're about 2 weeks or less away from the May revise from the governor. And as was previously stated, we do anticipate that the revenues are going to be up from or at what the January proposal was and possibly above that. Also, I did want to give you some information about CalSTRS since that did come up tonight. STRS is the largest public pension system in the world. You may or may not know, teachers and other educators that are under CalSTRS, we don't pay into Social Security. So our retirement is based solely on what we get from CalSTRS. And it has a board that is made up of our superintendent of public instruction, other practicing educators, which we elect to be a part of that board, who take their fiduciary responsibility to run that pension system very responsibly to make sure that we're getting return on investment. Also, what we know over the past several years, since the PEPRA bill, which you may or may not be familiar with, has concluded, the state and the governor, under Governor Brown even, did increase the state contribution to CalSTRS. And we believe that over time, if we were in another situation where there was a shortfall, that they would come in and increase that funding again, as we already saw Governor Newsom put more funds towards the pension for this year over the next several years that you saw in the presentation. And CalSTRS itself is different from what you hear in the media about traditional public pension systems. Like I said, it is the largest pension system in the world, and it's based on career earnings and longevity. So if you think about it like how when you buy a house, you're not going to put up the full amount for that house right now. You're going to mortgage it out for 30 years, and you're going to be able to pay over that mortgage over your 30 years. So we pay out 70 cents to the dollar for all of our employees that are under CalSTRS. Now, we couldn't do that tomorrow if everybody retired. However, over 30 plus years, we can do that. And we do have actuaries and other folks that are employed by CalSTRS in order to advise the board to make those responsible decisions. And they take it very seriously. Another thing I wanted to mention was our district over the past decade has had a joint benefits committee. It is made up of all employee groups. It includes us, it includes CSCA, it includes the POA, it includes the district. And we have worked very diligently to make sure that we keep our costs down for the district and that we stay competitive in the marketplace. So this year's proposal, which came to you last month, includes a rate cap for next year at 7%. I'll also note that the rate cap for next year was originally projected to be 11%. We were able to negotiate and be competitive in the marketplace again to get Health Net to bring it down because of the amount of employees that are in our pool and the work that we do through this joint benefits committee. Also, I will say that I have a little bit of a question about the predictions of the increases in the health benefits over the next 2 years. Just because we have no idea how much that cost is going to increase or not based on all sorts of external factors. And we have not seen a 10% increase in the past decade since the recession times. So we're also aware that LCFF funding has now been fully implemented, and we know that there are some other factors out there that could increase the amount of funding between now and the projected out years. One was AB 39, which was already mentioned this evening in regards to the increases in the LCFF funding, which we also wholeheartedly support as well. And then another thing I want to bring to your attention is an initiative that's already qualified for the 2020 ballot. It's the Schools and Communities First initiative. And what this would do is it would restore $11 billion per year for K-12 schools, community colleges, counties, cities, and special districts to support education and vital community services. And this has to do with a loophole in the corporate property taxes right now by assessing commercial and industrial properties at their fair market value. So we hope to get your support on that initiative because it will bring a lot of it's another prong of revenue that we can add to the legislation that's already in the pipeline that was mentioned this evening. And we look forward to continuing to work with you so that we can increase our student achievement across the district. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have a couple of questions, if none of the board members have any for right now. With regards to schools and community first, I believe our school district passed a resolution so in support of it. And so I just wanted to make sure that just to clarify, I think we did pass it to support it. So that's definitely on our list to make sure that we receive additional funds. With regarding CalSTRS, I didn't realize that. So you don't, none of our, I guess, teachers or those that fall into STRS pay Social Security. So they don't, none is taken out for Social Security.
No, not unless they previously worked in the private sector.
Okay. So while they're here, while they're working as teachers, or they don't pay into Social Security then.
Right.
And then with CalSTRS, I guess just to clarify, because I'm glad that you're able to provide some information on that, was the reasoning why there was a downfall. So I'm not sure if you have that information.
During the recession time, everybody saw a decrease in their investments because of the stock market. And when you're under a recession, obviously, everything goes down. So during that time, I don't have I can get you more specific information on it, but during that time, the projected revenues were down, and there was some urgency around coming together and finding out a way to ensure that CalSTRS was stable in the future. And so, it's something that it's over time, because it's based on longevity, they have worked to increase that. And a lot of that came through Governor Brown's bill several years back to make some changes to CalSTRS, and then also with the increase in the contributions from the districts as well to make it solvent.
So there was changes made to ensure that this doesn't happen again then?
There are some put in place through that legislation, but we know that if that happens in the future, then the legislature and the governor will most likely come back together to make changes in the future if needed, as they've done before.
Yes, and then Mr. Gallo.
Yeah, on that note, but there were no pensioners that suffered a loss.
No.
Yes, Mr. Tillman?
Are you under a two-tier system now?
Yes, there were changes made. So new employees, I believe it was after, was it 2015 or 15 when the bill was passed, that newer employees hired since 2015 are in a little bit different situation. I can get you more details on that because I don't have all the specifics.
I know it's the same thing for the county. If it's the same as the county, they can't retire until they're 67 now, is that it? And is there a cap on how much they can make? Is it the same for PERS and STRS?
I can't recall the exact dates of eligible retirement, but the retirement eligibility did change.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's tiered different now, so the cost is always going to be lower if they keep it the same. And also, I just want to say that when we had the recession, it was also at the time when the baby boomers began to retire. Mm-hmm. So you had a lot more people retiring, so the cost increased also. And that was another reason why they had to add more money.
Okay, and then Ms.
But
Dr. Flores.
I do want to say on a positive note, I think because people watch this on TV, I think it's only 8% of people in the United States are under a pension now. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it's to me, it's a great recruitment tool for people looking for a job that has some form of stability and guarantee when you retire. There aren't a whole lot of jobs out here right now where you can. Even with the changes, it's not as much. It's still good to be in a job where once you retire, you'll make more money than you would if you just have Social Security.
Right, and I agree with that. I think that's important. But I guess my concern was just to try to see
so be
why
a teacher.
the downfall, just to make sure that it's being managed appropriately, so it doesn't have to be where it goes through that system again. Yes, and then Dr. Flores.
Yes, Ashley, you mentioned that we have a pattern of negotiating a very equitable, reduced health benefits for the last 10 years. Could you provide us with that data? I mean, across the 10 years?
Yeah.
Because
we have
of what percentages it was, what the projected increase was, and what you actually negotiated, so that we can see the cost savings and so forth? Okay, I would appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Betis-Alcala. And Ms. Herrera, Ms. Christakis, or Dr. Mitchell, any follow-up comments to Ms. Betis-Alcala's comments or clarifications?
I guess a little more clarification. Does CalPERS function the same way with investments? They do? Okay.
Great. All right. Board welcomes Ms. Nancy Sanchez Spears.
Good evening,
Good
Dr.
evening,
Marston,
welcome. Good
President
evening.
Medina, board members, cabinet. My name is Nancy Sanchez Spears, and I am an employee, long time, of this district. And I just wanted to call to your attention that under the priority is the VAPA funding, which is visual and performing arts, and that includes dance, media arts, music, theater, and visual arts. And while I am very proud of our musical program, I support it and I celebrate it all the time, I really want you to remember that Ed Code says that grades K through 6 students will receive instruction in all areas of the arts, while 7 through 12 will have opportunities to have instruction in the arts. So I want to make sure that as we look at this, and we just recently had the California State Arts Standards adopted by the state school board. We are currently in the process of revising the framework for the visual and performing arts so that all students, all teachers involved and engaged in the arts have an opportunity to have a full experience in the arts, and that the students do not miss out. Thank you.
Makes me want to go back to school. Ms. Herrera, Ms. Christakis, or Dr. Mitchell, any follow-up comments to Ms. Okay, fantastic. And the board welcomes Ms. Carol Walker. Good evening, Ms. Walker, and welcome.
Good evening, board members. I just need to comment, Madam President, on something that you said. You're referring to the health and welfare benefits and the fact that the district pays 100%
Yes.
for some of us, and no other district does that I know of. But you also have to keep in mind that unless you're classified management, we also make less than any other district. So I just wanted to put that out there.
But does that, I'm just curious, but do you, so for instance, I also receive, and I at one point was considered medium to low income. So I had a large family, so I know that the not paying any health insurance was beneficial to me and my family. So is that something that you were looking at? Just clarifying that you don't, or do you do?
No, I was clarifying that while we don't, for someone like me, single, I think families
Right,
still have
yeah.
a percentage. Someone like me, single, no, I don't pay.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't make the money because you pointed out that the other
Right.
districts, they don't offer that. But
Right.
so I pointed out that we also don't make the money that the other districts make.
Okay, and
That's
this is for
classified work,
classified?
yes.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify.
My question was, I need to understand why or what the 112 million for contractual service, what that encompasses. And why is that 3% more than what classified salaries are? I need to understand what makes up that 1.12 million for contractual services.
So thank you for your question. Much appreciated. And I'll now turn it over to staff to make the answer. Thank you.
So we do pay for utilities out of that line item. That's about 10 million. We do have contracts that we have. We have insurance. We have our audits. We have other legal let's see. Communications, so our phone services, that's about $5 million. We have about 25 million in transportation, approximately 25 million in transportation in the 5,000. So that's a big portion of it. I'm happy to, we could give some more information.
Yeah, if
need
you
be.
leave us your contact information, we actually give you a line-by-line description of that information later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for your
Board,
question.
those are all, thank you for your question. Those are all the comments tonight for this session. So unless the board has further comments for staff, this would conclude the full presentation and interaction with the public and you.
And then thank you, Dr. Marsden, staff, and all those that made public comments. Dr. Barber, Dr.
Yes,
Flores, you had a question.
Madam President, I just wanted to apprise Dr. Marsden that to also call a board budget meeting as well, to include the board budget committee.
Yes, okay, I understand. So the board budget committee, you're asking a subcommittee of the board
The
to meet
subcommittee to meet
prior to the
yes.
28th meeting is
Yes.
the next meeting we have?
Yes, and
Okay.
also for both the LCAP and both the proposed budget.
Okay, we can certainly work hard to do that.
Right.
Great.
Well, that's what we've always done.
Great,
Yeah.
fantastic.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. I think
Move
this-
to adjourn.
to conclude our board meeting. Good evening, everyone. Meeting adjourned.